try very hard not to talk about the same thing in two different videos. That, invariably happens. You're going to run into things that are going to basically dovetail into the same thing by the time everything is said and done. And every once in a while, I even have a need to revisit things. And I think that probably the more I go along, the more that will happen, because I think people who have not seen things that I've said will benefit from seeing a new video that actually addresses that. Also, of course, there's the idea that you continue to sort of evolve on the various things that you believe for various things, various reasons. And today is definitely not an exception to that. Today we're going to talk on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics about Section 230, and we talked about it recently, but I took it on from a different perspective. By the way, I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Friday, the 1st of April of 2021. Sorry, I'm losing my days. And again, we're going to talk today on Section 230 again. Now, the last time I talked on Section 230, I did not talk about whether or not the law itself made sense to me. I didn't do that. I talked about the idea of whether or not people who were being protected under that law had the right to expect or believe that they should be protected under it. And I took the tech giants as my examples. And what I basically said was, everything I know about Section 230 says that you're not responsible for the content on your servers if you are not a content provider, but just provide a space for the content to exist and don't really moderate the content. You're not responsible for that content. This is what Section 230 was about. And my argument was that these people were moderating their content and therefore had become content providers instead of platform providers, and as such needed to be disallowed using Section 230 in order to do that. But I got thinking about it. I had somebody basically spam one of that video, the Section 230 video that I did. And that person didn't think they were spamming it, but they were. And basically what they did was they said a bunch of useless stuff, and there may have even been good stuff in between, but by the time you got past the 5,000th word, you pretty much came to the conclusion, if you hadn't hit it by that point, you weren't going to, at least for me, I wasn't going to look any further, okay? But what it did do was force me to come down, to strip things down to the basics where the law itself is concerned. And my conclusion is Section 230 has no business existing at all. It has no business existing at all. Again, if you have a truck and in your truck is some substance that somebody's paid you to carry, right, and you're not checking to see what's in your truck, which it would be kind of dumb for you to do if you did do that, but nonetheless, let's say you did it, okay? If there was ricin, if it was a truck full of ricin, would it really be your fault that it's a truck full of ricin? No, because you basically said, I'll take whatever load. Now, of course, things don't work like that to begin with. They don't work like that. You know what they're putting in your truck or you're in trouble, right? Potentially in trouble. Multiple ways. You may be carrying stuff that is actually going to be problematic or whatever, right? You may be carrying stuff that the vehicle is not rated to carry, and therefore it may cause damage of some kind, not just to the vehicle, but roadways, other vehicles if the thing falls apart or whatever, right? So the point is that typically doesn't happen. But the thing of it is this: if you can have a bucket and let somebody buy the bucket from you, or rent the bucket from you, and then the person takes the bucket and fills it up with cyanide, what business is it of yours? If somebody comes back to you and says, this person rented this bucket from you and filled it up with cyanide, your answer would be to go, yeah, that I didn't fill up with cyanide. I didn't tell them to fill it up with cyanide. I suppose you can make me tell them you can't fill our buckets up with cyanide. But what else can you do in a situation like that, right? What can you do? You rented the bucket to somebody and somebody put something in it they maybe shouldn't have put in it, whether it was arsenic or cyanide or ricin or whatever it happens to have been, right? It doesn't really make any difference what it was. The point is, you didn't tell that person, put that into that bucket, okay? And this is the thing. Where Section 230 is concerned, the idea that somebody who's providing a platform is not responsible for the content of the platform if all they're doing is renting space to somebody, which I think is a totally reasonable thing, that doesn't require any new section of law in order to deal with that, as far as I can tell. There's no need for that. Maybe there are pieces of Section 230 that make sense or are reasonable. I kind of doubt it. I think, honestly, that Section 230 is a solution in search of a problem. That's really what I think it is. I think if an entity like Twitter has people say things on Twitter that are objectionable, that it doesn't matter if it's a platform whether or not they've done that, because Twitter's not liable for that content. You hear all the time radio stations doing the we're not responsible for, nor do we necessarily agree with the content of this programming. You hear that all the time. That's because they can be, for all intents and purposes, a platform provider rather than a content provider. Now, most radio stations provide content. They have it in mind to have a particular type of content. But sometimes they will allow people that literally will say things that are objectionable or obviously just sales material, right? Things of that sort. They'll allow them to put those on their platform. And the thing is, I'm not saying that they're totally not responsible for that. But I am saying that if somebody makes spurious claims on a radio station and the radio station has already disclaimed that they are not responsible for the content of the program that's currently being provided, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you can go after them, but it really makes no sense. It really makes no sense. Okay, yes, they did give somebody a platform to say something they shouldn't have said. But the whole point of the First Amendment of the Constitution is for people to be able to say things that people don't want to hear and that maybe even are stupid and wrong. Okay? That's what it's there for. That's why it's been put out there. So as far as it goes, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to say this again, Section 230 is a solution in search of a problem. And it really doesn't need to exist at all. If it does exist, if it continues to exist, we need to remind people that what's actually going on here is people are trying to cover their caboose, to use a Bonginoism, from various kinds of potential legal action when they're not living up to the part of the bargain that they've made that gives them that protection. Are you a content provider or are you a journalist, whatever, editorialist, whatever you want to call it, right? Which are you? I should say, are you a content provider? Are you a platform provider? In case I said that wrong, and I may have done. But you get the point. You see what I'm saying, I hope, right? But here's the thing. I'm going to say this again. Section 230. Should it exist? Maybe there are reasons in Section 230. I'll be honest with you. I haven't read it because I got the basic grasp, the basic gist of what 230 was about. I said, well, okay, you can do that if you want. But the thing about it is when these people are not holding up their end of the bargain by being platforms instead of content providers, when they're actually editorializing, and I don't care, you set standards on your platform that says you can't do this, that's fine. First problem you have is that these people are actually putting stuff on, allowing stuff on their platform that breaks their standards, one, and then they're taking stuff off of their platform that doesn't break their standards. Okay? It just doesn't. Okay? Yes, you can say I don't want cyanide in my bucket. It's true. And you can take the bucket away from the person who's filling it with cyanide if you choose to do that, as if that's sort of the terms of service for your agreement. But none of this implies or requires the need for a legislation like Section 230. None of it. Because all of this stuff should be understood. All we're doing is adding to the law. And I'm going to say this, and people are going to get ticked off at me. It's actually the rich people, the high power people, who benefit from this. All right, I am running out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and call it good. Again, this is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. Thanks again for coming aboard. Today is Thursday, the 1st of April of 2021. Today we have talked about Section 230 again. And tomorrow will be Friday, the 2nd of April of 2021. Thankfully, that pesky April Fool's Day will be gone, and I'm very glad because I don't really deal with it. Tomorrow's subject is Special Day. And I've chosen this subject a little bit to poke fun, but largely because I think we really need to talk about that today is one-legged, one-armed, one-eyed Mama's Day. I really think we need to talk about this, really think we need to discuss it. It's a beautiful day today. It's a little bit on the cool side here in my little area. Still, it's beautiful. We're coming up on that weekend. My son will be off tomorrow, which means you may hear him in the background on the video. That's just how that happens sometimes. Hope you're doing well today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video is recorded on Friday, the 1st of April, 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.